remarkable staff, truly people that are single-minded and committed to our betterment. And I'd like all of them to stand right now back there in the corner. Thank you for everything you do for us. And one such staff member, the one not wearing the handsome tie, has been with us for a little over a decade and is going to be taking her leave, and it's with sadness and also excitement that I bid farewell and sincere thanks to Janelle Potson. Janelle, thank you very much for all you've done. We're also blessed to enjoy many strong and significant relationships with our allied associations. With us this morning to speak, the immediate past president of the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America and a national director. Please join me in welcoming Rafael Barajas, please.
All right, this is going to be fun. I'm trying to get your attention while you're eating. Great. Jeff, thank you for giving me the invitation and giving me the opportunity to address your colleagues here. It's really a great opportunity for me to express our concerns about the game of golf and where we stand as far as GCSA is concerned. My name is Rafael Barajas. I am the golf course superintendent of Hacienda Golf Club, and I've been having the privilege to provide my grass growing talents for the past 18 years at Hacienda. How many of you know any tuning? I should ask the question: how many of you didn't know any tuning? Because there's probably less of you that don't know any tuning. I had the privilege to work with Andy for about 15 years, maybe a little less than that. What a great individual. We still have a great relationship, and that's something that I try to preach with our fellow golf course superintendents, that we should have a strong relationship with the golf professionals. Gloves have to come off. We got to work together to grow the game of golf. But anyways, I've been in the business for 33 years, 29 years as the golf course superintendent, and as I said earlier, the last 18 years of beautiful Hacienda Golf Club, which is I'm blessed, I'm privileged to be able to have that position. It is a great golf course, great facility, and they treat me royal. Professionally, I've been involved with the local chapters, state and national, at the national level as well. I've been involved with the Superintendents Association of Southern California for many years, and have also led the association about 3 years ago as a president, and also have the privilege to, I'm the immediate past president of the California Superintendents Association, and a director for 3 years with GCSAA, which is a great honor for me and a great privilege. But I'm not here to really talk about me. I'm here to talk about a few things: the game of golf and the decline of players, player development, and what can we do in this area. They also would like to talk to you guys about the EIFG and the rounds of research, which I don't know if you guys have heard that program. That's a program from GCSAA that we have, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and also pace of play and what can we do to promote that, or to really get a grip on that area, because it is important. People don't want to spend many hours on the golf course. But let me give you some numbers first. The National Golf Foundation estimates that 25.7 million Americans were considered golfers in 2011. This is 2011 because I don't think or at least I don't have the current data for 2012. That number is down 4.3 million from 2005. The National Golf Foundation says that 463 million rounds were played in 2011. And that number is down from 500 million in 2005 and 518 million in 2000. I'm sure you guys all knew these figures, right? Yeah, right. But anyway, so it certainly doesn't look good for the golf industry going and I don't think we're going to be out of the woods anytime soon. So, play has been a decline, and players have left the game for quite a while, for over a decade. And I don't think we've done a good job noticing that. And most important, I don't think we've done a good job trying to grow the game. And I think I'm really happy to see that the PGA has taken an initiative and done a tremendous job of trying to coming up with initiatives that are certainly going to better this, because if there are no players, I don't have a budget, I can't maintain the golf course, and it affects all of us. And that's a given. So, with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the, player development. What can we do about it? We hear that the game is too long, and time is definitely an issue. I mean, that's really the biggest complaint that people have. I don't have time to go play golf, right? And that's a fact. So what can we do about it? We need to be creative and figure out what can we do to attract players that don't want to spend 4 to 6 hours on the golf course. Perhaps we need to consider, creating creating rates for 6 holes, 9 holes, 3 holes, whatever it takes. And that's a concept that I didn't come up with. You guys already heard this before, but I don't think we're doing much of that at all. And I think it's time that we start making a change if we want to be successful. I can tell you that if we don't change our traditional way of doing business, we're going to fall behind, and we're definitely going to struggle even more. I mean, we're already noticing that. I'd like to touch a little bit of the EIFG and the rounds of research. The EIFG was established in 1955 as a scholarship foundation, which is the Environmental Institute for Golf, and it's a philanthropic organization of the GCSA. In 2001, the EIFG was restructured to create a stronger connection to GCSAA and its members. The EIFG has continued to refine the focus of our efforts to advance the professional development of the golf course superintendent. This has a direct impact on advancing the golf industry. Our commitment is toward research, education, communication, advocacy, and scholarship for GCSA members. In the spring of 2012, the EIFG began the rebranding process, including the creation of a new logo, updated collateral, and the launch of a new website. Recently, the EIFG launched 2 fundraising initiatives to raise support for the advancement of the profession and the future of the game. So we're in this endeavor together. We believe that we need to do our part in growing the game of golf. The GCSA campaign, in an effort to raise awareness of the EIFG's impact on the industry and the profession, as well as increase the number of GCSA members who support it, a multi-pronged approach has been created to solicit, communicate, and secure donations. Currently, the EIFG utilizes a variety of mechanisms to secure individual gifts, such as the Golden Tee Club, membership dues renewals, to registrations for GCSA education and conference. In October of 2012, a high-five campaign was launched. This fundraising efforts targets GCSA members who are not currently given to the EIFG or a new member of the association. It is meant to encourage a donor to give at a level that it fits their budget, starting as low as $5. In other words, you just give me $5. That's pretty common, right? So and that's something that everybody can afford, or most of us can afford. Maybe we're not willing to do it, but in any event, rounds for research. Anyway, the goal is to secure donations for 51% of the GCSA members over the next 2 years in order to demonstrate the value of the EIFG to both endemic and non-endemic partners and raise additional funding. It is imperative that the EIFG communicate that more than half the GCSA members support this cause. It is really important for us, because if we don't do it, if we don't show an effort on our part, and our members are not supporting this program, there's no way we're going to get the support from you guys and from the outside the industry, our partners. Rounds for research. How many of you guys have heard about the program that GCSA has came up with, which is rounds for research? Anybody? A few hands. I see a few hands out there. So it's obvious that us, golf course superintendents, haven't done a good job promoting this program, and we need to do a little bit better job on that, and we're working on that right now as we speak. The Rounds for Research is a fundraising program conducted by the EIFG, whereby a round of golf defined as a tee time with green tees and carts for 2 players or 4 players is available for bid by the public through an online auction. The EIFG, what happens is the EIFG collects all proceeds from the auction and we'll grant the monies to participating chapters, your local chapter, sort of like the Scpga section, if the Scpga section was involved. In this case, it's for golf course superintendents, so it would be like the Hilo Golf Course Superintendents Association, the Southern California chapter, San Diego chapter, or the California Turf Grass and Landscape Foundation. Anyways, we collect the money, and we give those monies back to the chapters so they can conduct research at the local and regional level. So it goes right back to the golf industry. So what do we need from you? What we need from you is support. When the golf course superintendent goes to you, they can ask for a round to donate a round of golf. We need that round of golf so we're able to sell it and get the resources right back. That goes right back into the golf industry. It goes right back into the communities where we do business with. Ultimately, the benefactors of the investment of this funds are the golfers and golf facilities. So at the end of the day, without research, we're not going to have much. The operators have already benefited from increased efficiencies through the new golf course management programs, new turf grasses that fight disease pressures, wear and tear, and extreme weather conditions, and products that are more effective and safer for the environment. Increasing regulation, raising costs, and environmental concerns must be addressed if the golf is to sustain itself in a viable industry and recreational activity for people to enjoy. I mean, those are facts. I mean, we need help there. Without such funds, the innovation that have helped facilities to operate more efficiently, enhance environmental performance, and provide more enjoyable playing conditions will come to a standstill. And what we're going to do, how we're going to do this, is we're going to sell the rounds for research through a platform called Biddings for Good. Are you guys familiar with that? With that platform, it's sort of all the same thing as eBay. So in any event, we're going to have two auctions. One of them is going to be in June and in line with the U.S. Open, and the second auction is going to be in August, I believe, in line with the PGA. So we're going to need some help there. Okay, and it goes on and on. I mean, we have the funding that we really focus, the GCSA focus on is in research. And research which improves every aspect of the game, from player enjoyment to resource management. The EIFG is currently funding 6 projects focused on the management of diseases, insects, turf grass, and water quality and conservation. Water is going to be a big issue, not only in Southern California, the state of California, but just across the country. That's what I hear as I travel across the country. One of the main concerns is water is not going to be available. So we need to research and try to come up with ways that we can better provide a product that the players are going to enjoy at a more sustainable way. Education, as I mentioned earlier, continuing education is vital in keeping the golf course management current on the latest trends in the industry. If we don't keep up, we're going to fall behind. It's no different than what you guys are doing here right now, right? It's the same. The scholarships, in 2013, the EIFG will award scholarships and grants totaling more than $175,000. We used to do a lot of money. We used to be in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. With the economy affecting everybody, and the money that we were getting back, that we're getting in, basically was gone. It was gone. So we need to look for different ways. So we're already doing that. Pace of play. You know, this is something that we've talked about, and that everybody is really concerned, and I think that it's something that we also need to work on. Some of the things that we can do to improve pace of play is provide, from our perspective, from the golf course, from the grass grower side, and that's, you guys can, understand what I'm talking about. Is we need to provide adequate green speeds for the clientele that we're catering to. In other words, it's not about slow play or it's not about slow greens. It's not about slowing the speed on the greens at all. It is about providing the adequate green speeds for your clientele. If you have a private club that demands faster green speed, well, you got to give it to them. But if you have a public facility that doesn't require you to go out and give them those fast greens, slow them down. My brother is a great example. He's not going to hear this, so I hope you guys don't tell him. He's the golf course superintendent at Sierra Lakes. Sierra Lakes in Fontana. And he's a good golfer, he's a great player. One of the things that he used to do is just go out and he had the greens lightning fast, and I would go out there, and then he would start having problems in the summertime, and I go, dude, what are you doing? I go, what do you mean? I go, your clientele does not require those green speeds. All they want is nice, smooth putting surfaces, which is a key, smooth putting surfaces, and they'll be fine. You're only getting $44 or $45 per round. It's not, you know, you're putting a lot of pressure on the golf course, on the grass, and on yourself, and on myself, and on me. Because I gotta come up and see what you're doing, and try to help you out. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to pace of play. Some of the other things that we can do is I'm a good player. My handicap is 3, and if I play to a 5, I have a hard time finding a game. But one of the things so we have an eagle, like everybody else, I guess. We want to have a tough golf course. Well, I come to realize that Hacienda Golf Club is a beast of a golf course. It doesn't need anything else to play tough. So, but I have to be careful as to how I address things because the members also have an ego. And if you maintain their facility, you know, with what they think is lower standards, shorter rough, etc., what do you think is going to happen? They're going to start complaining to the board, and they're going to come back to me and say, "What are you doing?" And I'm going to say, "Well, I'm trying to make you enjoy your round of golf." Well, they won't believe that for a second, but that's really the bottom line. Well, so I got to put my ego aside and figure out a way how I can gradually get them to where they're going to be able to enjoy their game, you know, fast or more. But in any event, I'll get off my listing here. So a couple of things is Brown is good, and in golf course management, it's going to be something that we're gonna have to accept it because water's not gonna be available. At the end of the day, you know, GCSA really supports the PGA initiatives in growing the game of golf, get golf ready, play Golf America, Golf 2.0. And tee it forward. And in fact, our executive boards will be meeting with the PGA executive boards during the Masters to discuss specific areas where we can assist you guys with this initiatives. I mean, we really want to be partners. We definitely want to be a partner, not only in growing the game of golf, but also making the golf industry more sustainable and a better place, a better working environment. So, I don't know, do we have any more time and I'm done? Okay, good. Okay, thank you guys.
Our relationship with the GCSAA, we're inextricably linked to this important partner. They prepare and provide the very landscape that we try to sell every day. And Rafael, I appreciate so much you taking the time out of your day to be here with us this morning. Very, very grateful. We're also lucky this morning to enjoy the company of a remarkable individual, someone who's very approachable, someone who has turned things around dramatically for the professional women who play golf for a living. And this morning with us, the commissioner of the LPGA, Michael Wan. Michael, please.
Am I wired? Can you guys hear me? So the bad news is I didn't realize I was following Rafael, and that was actually informative and probably stuff you could use in your job. There's nothing I'm going to say to you today that's going to be either informative or you can use as a job, so I'll warn you in advance. I also realized when I've been traveling for 4 weeks, so I realized when I looked at the mirror today that I looked like an IMG agent at the end of Q school waiting for the girls to graduate. IMG would be proud of me, but I had a pair of gray slacks and a blue jacket. Just couldn't go there for a PGA meeting, sorry, we couldn't pull that off. This is also the first time in 4 years I've been in a meeting with more men than women, so I feel a little uncomfortable in this room, I have to tell you. Julie Inkster told me I lost my man card years ago, so I think unfortunately it is what it is. I wasn't sure how much time I had, and usually if you give me 100 people in a room, I'll slide into LPGA 101 and try to sell you all the tournaments. So I've got kind of some slides and stuff to go through, but at the end of the day, I don't really care if I do any of them or all of them. I'll just put one up so at least we're on the sure we're on the same page. But I brought some videos and things. I'm guessing most of you know what the LPGA is or what it isn't. I guess I'm supposed to. I'll give you a quick, can you hear me okay now? Yeah. I'm fairly caffeinated and don't have a problem with microphone anyway, so player meetings I've been banned to use a microphone. Also wise that no one's sitting in the spit zone. But the reality of it is I'm a golf guy, probably like a lot of you. I started caddying when I was 12. You know, my father, like maybe some of you, dropped me off at a circular drive in Naperville and said, I'll see you at 5 and you better have 40 bucks in your pocket. That's how much you made if you worked, you know, 2 times, which is amazing. And that's what a tip could be. But and if you didn't have 40 bucks, that means you either didn't work twice or you ate too much. And that was sort of that's how I got started. And I always wanted to graduate to grounds crew. So it was kind of funny listening to Raphael talk about green height and everything, because that's what I did all through high school and college. I had the opportunity to work in a pro shop and be one of those assistants you guys all hire and don't pay anything to. But I stayed on the grounds crew because I don't mind mornings. I'd start working at 5:30. We finished at 2:30, but you could play free golf. And so all the guys in the pro shop would say, you can't believe how much money you're giving up. I'm going to get tips all day. And I'd say, yeah, but you guys never play. And so I played every day. I would go home and nap from 2:30 to 3:30, be on the course at 4, and then play until sundown. And then the big deal, I don't know if it still happens, but the big deal on Mondays is grounds crews would play the other grounds crews from other golf courses. And for a kid growing up in Chicago and Cincinnati, I got to play courses that we'd never be a member of. We got to see some places that, funny, now some places that we actually play on tour. So grew up around the golf business, went to college in Ohio, got out of school and went to work for Procter & Gamble, nothing to do with golfing. You want to talk target control? I'm your guy, because I was press brand manager for a long time. My wife was glad when we no longer talked gum health at a party. But I left P&G when I was 29 years old to get in the golf business. I felt like I had left the thing in my life that was the most, it's weird to say, but there's something religious to me about the game. My parents told me about my grandparents being ill on a golf course. My dad told me about the birds and the bees, the very much abbreviated version, on a golf course. You know, when my mother got sick, she told me about it on a golf course. When I told my parents that my wife was pregnant, I told my dad on a golf course. It's for some reason we could do on a golf course what we couldn't do at a kitchen table. Still can't. You know, it's funny. I have a hard time telling my parents I love them on the phone, but no problem telling them when we're hugging on the 18th green. It's a funny thing. Maybe it's a one issue more than a golf issue, but it's always been a special place for me. So I left Procter & Gamble when I was 29 to go work at Wilson Sporting Goods and ran the golf ball and golf glove business. As most of you know, if you're going to go work in the equipment business, you're going to end up at Carlsbad, and I did too. In 1992, I moved to Carlsbad to work for TaylorMade, and then over the course of the run at TaylorMade, we got bought by Adidas, so we worked for TaylorMade Adidas Golf. And then I left the golf business in 2001, I think it was. And to be perfectly honest with you, when I left TaylorMade, I had come back from a board meeting in Germany, and I said to my wife, this company's as big as it's going to get. We had gone from about 100 million to 750 million, and I said to my wife, Meg, I said, you know, at best, this is an $800 million. There's nowhere else to go. I mean, I thought we'd come over the mountain. And now that they're just short of $2 billion, that tells you how quality my judgment is in business. Because I had no idea that there was still that much growth to go and that much learning. I kind of thought the learning curve was flat. I left to run a hockey business. I have no knowledge of hockey. I was a borderline rec player in college, just because I always thought it was cool that in rec hockey in college you played and then you went and drank. So it was a great combo for me. I was good at both of those. And so I joined hockey in college, but actually got into the hockey business and ran a hockey business for 7 years. And in 2008, Christmas 2008, we sold the business right before the world as we know it came to a stop. I had no idea that the world was coming to a stop. That was pure luck and no skill. And then made the great deal that most of you in the room have done, and made the great fatal error of making promises to my spouse. So at Christmas of 2008, she said, what are we going to do next? And I didn't make a ton of money in the sale, but enough to not be in a hurry. And I said, well, I'll promise you these 3 things, you know, which should have been struck down at that exact moment. Won't go into an airport for a year. I traveled a lot in my previous job. Whatever I do next, we won't have to leave Southern California that we love so well. And I promise you, whatever I do next, I won't travel as much as I did in the hockey business. So 6 months later, I went into an airport to fly to New York to interview for the commissioner of the LPGA. About 4 months after that, I accepted the job, and I probably haven't been home for more than 4 days in a row since then. And I moved my wife and kids from Orange County to Florida. So I'm nearly divorced, but I've been hanging on for the last 4 years and doing the job with my wife. Most of you know that I've moved to different courses and moved in life. There's nothing harder than moving your family for your passion. They have to essentially get on the tails of your passion. But I lived a sick life growing up. My father moved every 3 years, so I hated it as a kid, but as an adult, I've convinced myself that that made us stronger, you know? And so I've now been telling the same things to my kids that my dad used to say to me, which is, I know this is tough, but you won't get over how much stronger this will make you. And I'm embarrassed because I hated it when I heard it, and I'm even more embarrassed to say it today. But anyway, I took the job in the beginning of 2010. I really, it's funny, when I got the opportunity to be the commissioner of the LPGA and I got the job offer, my real answer in front of 15 people in a boardroom in Florida, in New York was, really? I mean, if you guys thought this through, I have zero skill to be the commissioner of anything, let alone the LPGA. Still true, as most of you have probably read, that I still have zero skill to be the commissioner of the LPGA. I didn't realize everybody else knew it, but I've been reading about it recently. But I mean, I really had nothing that would make you believe that I should do this job. I remember saying, the only time I'm going to be comfortable as the commissioner of the LPGA is when I'm sitting across from a sponsor who's about to write a big check. Because in my 10 years at Procter & Gamble, and then my 8 years in the golf business and my 8 years in the hockey business, I've sponsored everything. NASCAR, Major League Baseball, NFL, anything golf. I played in every pro-am in every country. I know sponsorship, and I've made a ton of mistakes and some really good home runs. I also know that sponsorship never pays for itself on a spreadsheet. You're never going to drop 300 grand and then go back to your board and go, look, we generated 343,000 for the 300,000 we spent. Sports sponsorship is a bit of a leap of faith. You got to believe you're doing the right thing, and you got to believe that spending time with your customers and getting your brand out is actually worth it, even if your ad agency disagrees. And actually saying that's exact almost phrases I use with the board, and they said that's why we want you to be the commissioner of the LPGA. We have plenty of players, we have plenty of people who have grown up around a golf course. We don't have anybody here who knows what it feels like to be a sponsor, and sponsors are our business. And it's kind of funny in sports, we've all kind of gotten away from that. When I was at Adidas, we sponsored the Yankees for $10 million a year over 10 years. So we signed a $100 million sponsorship deal. That still makes me sick because that's like 10 majors in my current world. But and I remember asking one time if I could take some customers into the dugout of Yankee Stadium at a night where the Yankees weren't playing. I mean, they weren't even there. I just wanted to show some customers. I mean, we're a $100 million customer, right? And I was told we don't do that with our sponsors. And really slowed down sponsorship ever since. I really find that it's funny that I would say this. I expect a thank you card from Derek Jeter. And when I say to people, they laugh. But I would tell you that the sponsors of the LPGA get a thank you card from Michelle Wee and Paula Kramer and Yanni Sen, and they always will. Because at the end of the day, I always tell players that we do a thing called the customer profile sheet. By the way, I have no idea why you guys brought me here, what you want me to say, and this is nothing what I expected to say. This is just what I do. When I got to the LPGA, I did something called role reversal. And I tell you about role reversal because I think it's not unique to the LPGA at all, but I think it's the #1 missing thing in business today, which is stop thinking about why you want to sponsor and start thinking about their business. I would walk into a meeting and we'd talk about the HSBC Championship. And the whole meeting would be about tee boxes, where we're going to put the camera, where's the player dining, how are we going to get players from the hotel to the golf course. And I remember finally saying, do you realize how much HSBC cares about none of that? None of that. In fact, they don't even care who wins the tournament. HSBC has a whole other set of objectives. Let's talk about that. And I realized pretty early in my career, nobody in the room could tell me about HSBC, the company, or why they were doing it. And I always say, if you go to a tournament and you don't know the sponsor and you don't know why they're doing it, you are dangerous. Because you might have a microphone in your face and you might think you know, and if you're wrong, you're going to lose that sponsor forever. So it might surprise you all, but when an LPGA player signs up this week at the Kia Classic at Aviara Golf Club, on Tuesday, the first thing she'll get is a 2-page form called the customer profile sheet. On the top of that sheet, it says who's writing the check this week. Not who's the title sponsor, not whose name's on the 18th green, but who's writing the check. And the first time I did this with players, I can't remember what player raised her hand, and she said, Commish, why don't you just say who's the title sponsor? And I said, because you guys wouldn't pay attention. Who's writing the check means if it wasn't for that person, you'd be home playing some member for a set of Callaway irons. I mean, that's really what you'd be doing this week. And they know that because unfortunately on the LPGA they have weeks to go home and do that. But if you don't realize who's writing the check, then nothing else matters. So we go into HSBC. Who are they? How long have they been in business? What's important to them? We say, why is HSBC doing this? And I always say to players, the next 5 bullet points are the only ones that matter. Read those. So we go into the 5 reasons HSBC sponsors this event. And I can promise you that HSBC does it for a completely different reason than R. Donnelly, than Kraft Nabisco, than Hannah Bank, than Sybase. Everybody does it for a completely different reason. I pride myself in the fact that we don't do any tournament alike. Everything's customized. We say, what does HSBC hope you say when there's a microphone in your face? And we give them suggested responses. Some players read it verbatim. Some players, I don't think I've ever read a customer profile sheet. We talk about what they should tweet, Facebook, Instagram this week. Players get that. You know, Instagram is right up their alley. So what kind of pictures should you send out, Natalie Golbus, to your 450,000 followers? Because if Natalie Golbus says, I can't get over how cool this Kia is, I talk to it and it talks back. That's 450,000 followers of Natalie who really care if she likes Kia. She could actually move the needle for Kia more than the ads on Golf Channel this week. And once she realizes that, we're in good shape. We talk about where we show the address and where you send your thank you card. Players hate the fact that I never give them an email. I can tell you as an exec, I get a lot of thank yous on email. I read them in between airports, I hit delete, I think that was nice, and by that night I have completely forgotten about it. But when I get back to my desk and I open up an old handwritten letter from somebody that says, Commissioner, I saw your telecast this week and I really, whatever it is, I can't throw it away. I stick it in a drawer I have of letters that have really made my day. Every CEO has a drawer. And our goal, I always tell the players, is to be 70% of their drawer. Whatever their drawer is, we need to be 70% of the number of letters in it. We show pictures of the key executives that will be there this week. If you wanted to know who President Ahn is from Kia, you'd see it on a customer profile sheet. 2 years ago, the Vice President of Marketing for Kia is a guy named Michael Sprague. Not relevant to this meeting, but we showed a picture of Michael Sprague. Christina Kim putted out on the 9th green on a Saturday. So it was 3rd day of competition, day after cut, was walking to the 10th green, and Michael Sprague was standing there with his wife, just outside the ropes, like having a hot dog on the 10th tee. But he's the VP of Marketing for Kia. She saw him, kind of recognized the photo, went over and said, "Are you Michael Sprague from Kia?" And of course, you know, Michael's like, "Well, yeah." And she said, "Just want to shake your hand on behalf of women all around the world. What you're doing this week makes a difference." You can't imagine how fast Michael called me on my cell phone and said 2 things. Why does she know who I am? And how does she know who I am? And I said, every player knows who you are this week, and you're going to get a lot of thank you cards at the end. And his comment was, we sponsored the Australian Open in tennis. We're about a $100 million sponsor of the NBA. I've never had an athlete thank me. And I said, then tell the NBA they got a problem, but we're going to keep thanking them. And I think that's something that's just gotten lost in sports and business. I always say there's 2 things missing in business today: courage and appreciation. For some reason, we don't reward courage. We identify failure, and people who have courage fail more than they succeed. That's a given. But if you really have courage, you have the potential to do something really different with your life. If you want to just succeed, you have a chance to have a really cool funeral, but you're not going to leave a mark when you left. So courage is one, appreciation is another. Somehow we forget to thank the people that really give us an opportunity in life. Whether it's getting us on tour, or whether it's giving us, our first opportunity to get on tour, whether it's somebody who talked us into college, or whether it's somebody who talked us into playing golf for the first time. We have a, how am I doing on time? So you guys just need to get up and leave, and I'm done. You sit here, this is about the LPGA. I'm going to be going until you guys are done today. We have a deal with players. It's called growth. And I always say, since the day I became kind of an executive level, whether it was Procter & Gamble, Wilson, TaylorMade, or Mission Tech Hockey, I always get asked the question about growing the game, because once you get to a certain level, they think that you somehow have some secret nugget of what's going to, oh, that's the guy we've been looking for. Nobody grows the game. Not one person in here, certainly not one person on the stage. But I always say, when you talk about, when we were at TaylorMade, and we were trying to get from selling 4 million drivers to 5 million drivers, that sounds really daunting in a boardroom. But what we do is we just divide it up by the number of sales reps we had. I'd give them that number, and I figured out how many more drivers you had to sell a day. I remember one year the number was 23. Every rep had to sell 23 drivers a day. So my deal with the reps were, on your drive home tonight, you call me and leave me a voicemail with your number. I don't want to hear about your day. I don't want to hear about the obstacles. Just give me a number: 32, 46, 18. And if the number is less than 23, just know that I'm adding up your week. And if your week isn't 23 times 5, know that I'm thinking about a new territory rep. because that's the world we're in. You got to get 23. I've got tournaments to deliver. And I always say, 8th grade is the last year you get graded for effort. My kid get an A for a grade and outstanding for effort. And I always say to them, unfortunately, once you get to high school, you won't get the effort grade anymore. It still matters. You just don't get graded for it. It's all about how you do in the class. And so when I talk about growing women's golf, we always say, hey, it's a difficult task, but broken down over a lot of people, we can all nail it. So we have a deal on the tour called Growth. And every player on tour has to buy into those letters. G stands for get involved, which is every player on the tour, on any tour, bitches. They don't like something, they certainly don't like the commissioner, and they don't like something about something else. And I always say, if you've been complaining about something for more than 4 weeks and haven't started your own committee to fix it, I'm stopped listening to you. If you have a problem that's been around for 4 weeks and you start fixing it, I promise you no one's going to help you with that more than Mike won. But if you're just complaining for 4 weeks, I have zoned you out after a month for sure. R stands for reach out. Every one of our players and every one of you, every day, could get 2 more women interested in the game. You can decide not to, but you could do it. You know you could do it in your club, you know you could do it in an airport, and you know you could do it when you get a chance to do something bigger in terms of your membership. You know you could break down some of the female stereotypes. You know you could make your club more female friendly. You know you could find that little 8-year-old girl that comes with her mom and doesn't really ever walk onto the green. You know you could get those, because if you have daughters and they play the game, you know there was a moment where something clicked. And so our deal is 2 a day. And our girls have a better opportunity because when they're walking on the fairway, there's a bunch of 8-year-old girls looking at them. I got a ton of opportunity because I'm always talking in front of a bunch of women. So 2 a day. We get 2 more people invited to the golf course. My mom started playing golf when she was 59, and I asked her, why did you wait so long? And she said, I was never invited. And she was kind of a joke, but the reality of what it was, she never felt comfortable on a course. And now she plays 5 times a week. Now she's addicted like the rest of us, and she throws tons of revenue into that club. But the reality of what it was, she didn't really feel invited. So reach out means grab 2. The O on growth is open to new ideas, and that's my point about courage. Listen, I've been around the golf industry enough to know that when Mike Wong suggested a 5th major, everybody in the golf industry sighed. And before I would have been commissioner, if I'd have heard about the commissioner of the LPGA suggesting the 5th major, I'd have sighed with you. Like, seriously, does this guy not get it? It's sport, it's history, that's the way it's been. But that's courageless. Courage is women need a chance to play in front of the world's media more often than they do. A couple of times a year, you all give a shit about us, let's face it. Most of the time you don't. But you'll hear about Rory McIlroy if he farts after dinner today, we'll be at 400 Twitters about it. We may actually have Stacey Lewis become the #1 player in the world, and I have to fight to get somebody from the New York Times to write about that. When we play a major, the world tends to pay attention. The reason we have a 5th major isn't because I don't like history. It isn't because I don't respect what happened 35 years ago in the LPGA. It's because my job is to give the best female players on the planet an opportunity for all of us to care one more time. So we do a 5th major one more time. So that's open to new ideas. That may be the greatest failure of my career, starting a 5th major. Time will tell. If that golf course, after $20 million of fix, isn't good in September, I will be incognito in the, I live in somewhere with a big beard because that Evian crew will be looking for me. But we're going to try different things. We're going to, we introduced something called the International Crown. It's completely different from the President's Cup. It's completely different from Solheim Cup, and it may be a huge failure. It might just be a home run for girls in the game. The W is in growth, stands for World Tour. And when you see it on a card that we hand out, it's World Tour, get over it. We're a World Tour. If you don't like the fact there's a lot of players from Korea, your problem, not mine. If you don't like the fact that China's getting good in golf, your problem, not mine. That means you haven't traveled outside of the States enough, and I can't solve that problem for you. But what I can tell you is, I'm the commissioner of 300 women that come from all over the world, and they are so similar, it would scare you. I'm Miyazaki from Japan, Na Young Choi for China, Brittany Lindsay comes from Florida. Identical. Identical young girls. They shop too much, they spend too much, they love too much, they play way too much, and they have got huge hearts. And I love every one of them. And I really, at this point, couldn't care less who their father is, where they were born, and how long it took them to speak English. But the good news is, and somebody asked me one time in a media interview, it was on that ESPN hot seat. It's one of those deals where they fire questions at you. One of the questions was, you're pushing the tour global, how do you know it works? Go. I'm like, you got 30 seconds. And I just said, Olympics, next question. Because for me, for years, I've stood on the edge of my seat, rooting for some Russian bobsled duo, or Olga Korbut, you know, a Russian female gymnast. All three things I didn't like. Women's sports, gymnastics, and Russia. You know, when I was 8, we didn't like Russia. In fact, we didn't even sort of like Russia. We liked rooting against Russia. And here I'm on the edge of my seat with my father and mother next to me, high-fiving, because she has a perfect 10. If you don't think athletes and their stories can break down walls, you're just missing it. And so today, when we show up in Thailand, Singapore, Australia, Malaysia, China, I see young 9-year-old girls looking up at Michelle Lee and making a difference. I see young girls looking up now at Nyan Choi in Wisconsin and making a difference. So it's World Tour. Get over it. We're not going back. And as a result of it being a World Tour, we have players from all over the world, fans from all over the world, and sponsors from all over the world. This week we'll play in Aviara, but 173 countries will watch us. 10 years ago, we were lucky to have 17 countries watching us. 173. I mean, that's almost Olympic-like today. So we're impacting the lives of young women in terms of, can you do this? Literally everywhere. And if the U.S. wants to bail on us, I'm cool with that because we're making a difference worldwide, and I think that's a better outcome long term. The T in growth is thank you. I think you probably learned my deal on that is don't care. I always say when I hand you a big check on the 18th green, you can thank whoever you want. Your mom, your dad, your caddy, Jesus Christ, your original coach. But the first person you thank, you look down and see who signed that check, you thank that person first. I just want to thank Rick Ryan from Oregon. You know, if it wasn't for Oregon, and then you can go do whatever you want to do. But Rick Ryan has paid, you know, $3 million to be thanked first, and so that's what we do. And the last H in growth is have fun. I always tell players, look for the most sponsored player on the tour. Who's got crap all over their bag, all over their shirt, and all over their hat? I promise you one thing: she enjoys the business of golf, and she has fun every day on the golf course. Natalie Golbus hasn't had a bad day in her life. She loves everything, loves everybody. When she finishes a Pro-Am, I'll see her at a restaurant that night, and she'll go, 2 for 4 tonight, Commish. And for the longest time, I didn't tell people what that was. I was sitting with Ron Syrak from Golf World Golf Digest, and we were in Evian. And she walked over and said, 1 for 4, slow day. And he goes, what's that mean? Is that some sort of greens and regulation translation? I know. She said, went 1 for 4 on her Pro-Am. One of the 4 guys at her Pro-Am is going to sponsor something of hers. Her foundation, her bag, her hat, girls golf, something on the LPGA, but she went 1 for 4 today. And he goes, do you teach that? I said, if I could teach that, I'd retire. That's the Natalie Golbus thing. And she has fun. She makes sure customers enjoy it. Solheim Cup is the most enjoyable thing to watch in the golf because they're nervous, they're having fun, they're hip bumping, they're high-fiving, they're screaming back at the crowd. Unfortunately, a lot of weeks they pull their hat down, put the glasses on, and the fun goes away. But when they're having fun, so is my ratings. You know, it's all good. And that's growth for us. You know, get involved, reach out, screw up with some new ideas. It's a world tour. The sooner you get over it, the better. Thank you, everybody who's making a difference in your life, and have fun while you're playing. And I always say to players, if you stop having fun, leave. Life's too short. You know, if you guys aren't enjoying your job, do something else, because you're not helping us. If you're miserable, I promise you your membership is miserable, or wherever you're teaching on the tee is miserable, so get out. You know, because that's not what we want. You know, if you're not having fun on the tee, they're not having fun on the tee. And if they're not having fun on the tee, they're not bringing more people in. I love this thing. I've loved golf since I was 12 years old. You can tell because I'm frothing and spitting. And I'll do this as long as I'm having fun. And if I stop having fun, I'll go. You know, everyone always says, what's it like to work for 600 women? And I said, it's the best job I've ever had. You know, tonight, after we do a player meeting, I'll get 60 text messages about what I'm wearing, especially tonight I will. But they'll make fun of my tie, they'll make fun of my hair, like, have you gained weight? I get all those at night, and I also get ideas. Hey, I heard what you said about such and such. I don't think that happens on many tours, and I don't think that happens in many organizations. And as long as that's happening, I don't mind. I don't mind if someone has to make fun of my weight, as long as at the same time she's trying to figure out how we can make our Pro-Am better than it was today. And the cool thing about the LPGA is they're engaged. You know, they're underdogs. They've been underdogs for 63 years. Unfortunately, we're going to be underdogs for the next 63. Sucks, but it's a reality. Doesn't mean we'll be the same size underdog as we were 63 years ago, and certainly not going to be the same underdog 63 years from now. But yeah, we're going to be underdogs, but we're going to be the most tenacious underdog you ever dealt with, and we're going to be the most appreciative underdog you ever dealt with, because fighting the negative way doesn't work. And quite frankly, we are appreciative. You know, I think for these girls that are getting to play for a living, pretty appreciative of what they did. So as you can see, I rarely take a breath. I'm highly caffeinated. And I just now talked about nothing I had planned to talk about. Haven't showed you one slide other than some slides somebody made for me. I brought a few videos, but the reality of it is I'm sure I've blown your time away. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. If you want me to go longer, I will. But if you want me to stop talking, I'll do that too.
How does a fringe player afford the world travel?
She doesn't. I mean, if you're a fringe player, it's going to be a tough business long term. I'm not in the business of providing you a career. I'm in the business of providing you an opportunity to pursue your dream. If you can deliver your dream, you're going to love this tour. And if you can't, you're probably going to figure out another line of work. That's the reality. Players hate it when I give them that, but that's the reality. It's just like when some player says, hey, Commish, why don't we play for more money? The guys play for more. And I say, you're not worth it. That sucks, but the reality of it is Finchem's delivering a 4.0 on Nielsen on Saturday. That's worth a buttload a month. We deliver about a 0.9 on CBS on Sunday. I don't like it, you don't like it, but 0.9 is worth a 1.5 purse, and a 4.0 is worth a 7.4 purse. Sucks, but it's the reality of business. And if I was a sponsor tomorrow, I'd pay more to Finchem than I'd pay to Mike Wan. I hate it, trying to solve it, but that's the reality. And you can Title IX yourself to your blue in the face, but the reality of it is when it comes down to business, you pay for what you get in return. I'm really excited about the fact that we have more tournaments and more total purses than we've had in the last few years. We'll have 330 hours of live TV this year. That's almost 80 to 90 hours more in a season than the LPGA's ever had in 63-year history. So I look at those and say that's major breakthrough. You don't get more TV time because I'm a good guy or I took somebody to dinner. That's whether or not people are watching you. And our viewership's up 70% in the last 2 years, and because we're up 70%, we're getting more TV. In 2010, 60% of our television coverage was tape delay. There's nothing more enjoyable than watching sports when you know the answer, right? So I mean, 60% to 9. You got to be. I couldn't watch tape delay. I know the answer. I Googled. So now we're 94%. I can't remember what your question was. What did you ask?
How does a fringe player afford the travel?
Yeah, the reality of it is, if you're a top 80 player in the LPGA, you probably like it a lot. If you're not, you probably don't. I think it's unfortunate that you could be the 150th best player on the PGA Tour and make $4 million. I don't find that either competitive or compelling. Doesn't mean I don't like it. Doesn't mean I wish my players could do the same thing. But I don't think the 144th player in the world of the men's tour makes that kind of difference to the customer, to TV, or to the future. But they get paid like they do. My top 20 players make a difference in the world of golf, and they get paid like it. They work for it, but they get paid like it. My 140th, unfortunately, she's not moving the needle for me. And since she's not moving the needle for me, she's not moving the needle for the customer or TV. And if she's not, she's getting paid like it. It's really cold, I know. I love that player. And most players on tour know that nobody I love more than 80 to 120 because they work as hard and don't get paid as much. But I can't solve that problem for them. And certainly not going to in my tenure as commissioner. So the sooner they know that, the better. Which means it's a pretty good gig if you can get in the top. And it's not so great if you can't. Anybody else? Yeah.
You were in a tournament in Naples. I was wondering how that worked out if you guys are playing that one back there.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't announce it here, but we're going to play at the Ritz next year. So we stay at the Ritz. Our customer stays at the Ritz. And last year we played out at Twin Eagle, which was a cool course, but it was borderline Naples. It's pretty far out if you're from, so we called it Naples, but small N. It was a pretty good drive. And it was a pretty good drive for the customer and everything. So we love Naples. We love the Ritz. I mean, if you don't love the Ritz and Naples, you clearly have been spoiled most of your life. But it's so now we're going to walk up and walk the first tee. It's a little bit dicey because we're 3 weeks before the shark shootout, which is you know how much the men love it when the women play right before they do on the golf course. But but a really cool thing is we're going to share a bunch of costs. So bigger everything between the two tournaments, and it's a home run tournament. And when I say tournament's a home run if the sponsor loves it. Because if the sponsor loves it, you're in it long term. We just renewed for 5 more years with them. They just added $500,000 more to the purse. So the winner of that tournament, our title holders is our year-end event. The winner gets $700,000, which I know is a third place check probably this week on the men's tour, but $700,000 is the biggest winner's check on the women's tour. The only way to get into that event is to be a top 3 finisher at one of our events throughout the year. So it's got to play well somewhere to get in it. And when you get in it and you make it to that event, it's a non-cut. Somebody makes $700,000 just for winning. It's a pretty cool end for us, and a lot better than our tour championship, which, to be honest with you, was a tournament with the name Tour Championship. There was no there was no concept. Yeah.
What about the, any discussion about the age qualifications of being on the tour now? It's 18 right now, other than Lexi Thompson, but like
Yeah.
Lydia Ko or Aria.
It's funny, age and anchoring putter seems like I can't get away from that the last few months. So, age. Yeah, we have a constitution that says you have to be 18 to be in the LPGA. Because players are involved in the constitution legally, you can't have players decide if a player can be a player or not for obvious reasons. So the way our constitution works is if you're not 18 and you want to be, and you're under 18 and you want to be a member of the LPGA, the only way to get an acceptance is to petition the commissioner. What's even stranger about it is I can't talk to anybody else about that process. Otherwise, it's illegal. Like I can go to a bunch of players and go, well, what do you think about Lydia Ko? Because as soon as I do that, that's a problem. So my petition process is very, it's unidimensional. You know, it's just me. Quick comment on age. I always, I was just talking to somebody in the hallway and said, I probably don't do a very good job of publicizing it, but I get anywhere from 15 to 20 petitions a year. In my 4 years, I've said yes once. I think everybody focuses on the one yes, but not on the 80 no's, which is okay. I mean, the reality of it is I can't talk about the no's because it's personal between the player and I. But my standard story to parents is this. Show me in our 63-year history a player that had her best years before she was 20. You can't show me one. And if you do, I'll show you a player that burned out at 20 and never played again. So we don't know if she would have had. She was just so miserable with the game by the time she was 20, she checked out. And so if you want to follow history, you probably are going to go pro early. She's still not going to be great until she's in her 20s and her 30s, and you're not running the risk that she'll want to run away from the game when she's 21. Now that being said, there are some players, and I'm sure there'll be others, like Lexi, that I think it's a fair comment to say she probably can't get the competition she needs to take her game to the next level at amateur golf anymore. I think, at least in my tenure in 4 years, I've seen one. You know, probably seen two, but the second one hasn't petitioned. I also say to players, if you petition me and your kid hasn't won on the LPGA, I'm glad you're petitioning, but you're wasting a lot of time. Because having a great amateur career and being very mature is great. You are so ready for college, I can't believe it. You know, you've got a great amateur career and you're mature. You're going to love Arizona State, you know, wherever you're going. If you've come out and played against the best 80 players in the world and won, I'm going to read your petition a lot slower. And that's pretty rare, but it happens. So I'm not a fan. You know, I'm a parent. It's hard not to be a parent in front of these. You know, most of the women on tour are in their 20s, and I've got a kid who's 19. So it's hard not to look at these young girls and be a father. So when I see a 16 or 17-year-old petition, I slide into dad mode more than I probably should, and I start to talk to them about life. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to stop young women from going professional. I'll probably stop more than my fair share of them becoming LPGA members. But most of the ones I say no to go petition somewhere else and go play pro somewhere else and just wait till they're 18, so I didn't really solve the problem. I'll just they'll just come to me later. My biggest thing on the LPGA is whether you like the LPGA for this or not, we play all over the world and we do it all the time. I'm not sure Thailand, Singapore, Taiwan, Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok is the right place for a 15-year-old to be. At a pro-am party with a bunch of alcohol, a bunch of men like us in a pro-am, I wouldn't want my 15-year-old daughter there. So I say that to a lot of fathers. But it doesn't mean that we won't have other underage players join the LPGA. It'll just be few and far between. Anybody else? Yeah.
What's been your most favorite part of the job in the last 2 years and your least favorite?
My most favorite is definitely stories, is getting to know these players. We have a deal during a rookie orientation where you have to stand up, say your name, where you're from, and something that nobody else in the room would know about you. And it's the greatest day on tour for me because it's, Amanda Blumenhurst stands up, and I think I know her, 4-year Duke student. I've watched her go through college, and she talks about this game they play at a lake house they go to where they grease up a watermelon, and they play this grease football game, and then everybody gets greased up. You can't tackle anybody. Watermelon goes flying. And I mean, to me, I'm thinking TV commercial. Let's talk about it. They're all cool stories. I mean, every one of them is. They're all 20-something, and they're fun, and they're. One of my greatest. Somebody asked me the question about Naples. I was sitting at a Chris Steakhouse in Naples 2 years ago, and I was doing my spiel like I'm doing now, talking 100 miles an hour, thinking I'm cool. And the head of CME Group, which is Chicago Mercantile Exchange, said, "Hey, Commish, you're a good guy. I love you. but you're not the reason I did the LPGA. You know that, right? I'm like, well, I had to do a little bit of reason. No, you're not the reason. He pulls out his cell phone and he goes, watch this. And he starts texting a player. And this is Saturday night of the tournament. This is a big paycheck next day. Saturday night, she's in third place at the time. Brittany Lincecum, to give you, and he starts, and he says, nice putt on 17. Keep your freaking head down. She missed a pretty easy putt on 17. And I'm thinking, I like Brittany. I wouldn't send that on Saturday night, you know. But he hits send and he puts it on the table, that thing, and I go, did that really accomplish anything? And he said, wait for it. So we keep talking. He said, no, just wait. He called. And I said, it vibrates. And she said, you stick to commodities, I'll stick to putting. Go back to whatever you're drinking. And that's why I sponsored the LPGA. Because he said, I know the 50 customers I have here, and the 20 or 30 board members are doing that tonight. They're reaching out to a player they played with, saying, hey, nice round. She's reaching back. They become friends. I think that's the coolest part of the LPGA. I think if you follow the LPGA closely, if you come out to events regularly, you're friends with a player, and that doesn't happen in many sports. I'm a baseball fan and a football fan. I've had great seats. I went to high school with Sean Payton, who's the coach of the Saints. I could stand on the sideline, but at the end of the game, I don't know an athlete. Quite frankly, some of them I don't want to know. But I think at the LPGA, you'll learn, you'll meet athletes. Your second question was the worst part? The worst part's this, and I don't mean this speaking. The worst part is my kids are probably about to get out of school, and a lot of dads are going to pick them up, and I'm not one of them. It's a shitty part of the job. Sorry about my language, but there's no other way. It is a shitty part of the job. You can't be a good father with a phone call. You can't text a kid with a text message. You can talk yourself into the fact that you're being a good dad, but I travel a lot. I have a personal philosophy that I'm never going to talk somebody into being a sponsor of the LPGA and not be there when they're spending their money. It used to drive me batty that some salesman would sell me something, and then when I was actually spending the money, they were off working on the next one. And I find that incredibly offensive. So I got Kia to do 4 more years. I'm going to be there with Kia's entertaining the customers. Once our tournaments begin, I'm gone. Our players think I really don't like golf because I'm almost never there Thursday to Sunday. I don't really care to be there Thursday to Sunday. That's for fans, not for me. On Tuesday and Wednesday, I can generate some pretty good media. But on Thursday through Sunday, nobody wants to talk to me. It's all about who's in the lead. So there's no doubt that's the worst. And quite frankly, I share that with a lot of players and caddies and staff. You know, it looks pretty glamorous to be Atahara Munoz. It isn't, you know, that glamorous on that Monday when you're just like this, zipping up that bag, flying out of, you know, Phoenix, landing in Ontario, driving to here, getting in a car, driving to Carlsbad. You might see an article about me in ESPN or something tomorrow, which will go, that sounds pretty cool to be him. But you guys know, you know, I mean, I was at the Embassy Suites, Ontario. I'm driving 2 hours tomorrow, and you know, I'm calling my kids tonight to say goodnight. That's a bad gig, you know. Yes.
Mark, what do you think your mark
Mike.
what would you think your mark would be when you leave the LPGA? What would you like to accomplish when you leave?
Geez, that's a good question. And embarrassing, I couldn't even begin to answer that question. I think I always tell players and my staff that the LPGA is kind of a funny one. It's not like when I was at TaylorMade, or when I was at Wilson, or was at Procter & Gamble. I felt like there I was really trying to raise the value of the brand, so if we ever had to sell it or raise stock price. I think the LPGA is kind of like a relay race. You know, I kind of feel like, you know, Nancy Lopez slapped the baton up, and, you know, Annika grabbed it and ran for a while. And, you know, I'm really good friends with Charlie Meacham. As far as I'm concerned, he's always going to be the commissioner of the LPGA. I play at a prime with him every year at Craft. And I always feel like Charlie kind of slammed the baton in my hand and said, run as hard as you can for as long as you can, and then slam the baton in somebody else's. So I only hope that when I put the baton in somebody else's hand, we're better off. There's more opportunities for women in the game than before I got here. We have a phrase, we just came from the Founders Cup, so it's we end most meetings with, that's it, go have a good dinner, think like a founder. So think like a founder is what we say on the way out. And think like a founder means, remember that 63 years ago, 13 women knew they were never going to make any money in this game. They were just simply trying to make the game better for women that they had. And they knew when they left they were going to be broke, but they might just make the game better for women. And if you think like a founder, that's really your only goal, is do something over the course of your career, your day, your week, or your year that leaves the game a little better. I think I'm doing that. It may not be as to the same degree I want it to be, but I feel pretty comfortable when I hand the baton off. And I know I'll be tired, so I know I'll get the A for effort that nobody will give me. But I feel pretty good that we'll move the baton a little bit. You know, you almost can't have a bigger goal than that because it's not mine. You know, it's not mine. It wasn't Charlie's. It's not Christy Kerr's. It's not Stacey Lewis's. it's just ours to carry to the next person, you know? And that's really, I think, the game, you know, what you guys do too. It's, sometimes we can get a little full of ourselves and think this is our club and our membership, and reality is all you're really doing is fostering a really incredible game that teaches lessons much better than how to make a birdie, and if you're really good at it, you'll invite more people to experience it so their life gets better too. My life's better because of golf, and my kids' life's going to be better because of golf. None of them are going to be pro golfers. In fact, they may never break 90, but they're going to be better because the game is part of their life. I see you standing up. Is it time?
It could be.
Mike Wan, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much, Mike. What a terrific presentation. Raphael, thank you very much. Staff, fellow members, our Allied Association, the LPGA members that are with us today. Thank you all for being here. We're going to conclude next door with the marketing segment. Josh Alford and DJ Lamarty are going to conduct that for us. And with that, if you make your way next door, we'll conclude in about an hour. Thank you all very, very much.